When you were over there, was any doubt that you had done the right thing by enlisting? And again,
yeah, no doubt.
No doubt at all.
Yeah.
You were geared up, ready to go.
Yeah.
So what happened when you were over there?
Like got in some gunfights, hit some targets, and then redeployed back to the States.
You say that so casually. Got in gunfights and hit some targets. Like, it had to be a pretty extreme experience.
Yeah, but honestly, I think my Afghan experiences were more intense than Iraq for sure.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was a different animal.
And when did that happen?
So did some rotations in Afghanistan following the Iraq invasion. And it was kind of the more traditional, like, SF mission, like working with indigenous troops and leading them on raids and things like that.
That's got to be a wild change of life, to go from being a musician, to go from being a deployed special operator in Afghanistan. Like, the shift in consciousness is so extreme.
Maybe,
but
I think I'm pretty good at just with rolling with stuff. It's like, oh, this is happening now. Okay,
but that's a big happening. It's a huge happening.
Yeah.
To be in combat.
I mean, definitely, I think the war and combat was the most profound experience of my life for sure. And I don't mean to maybe treat it lightly, because I don't take it lightly. Yeah, it's by far the most profound experience of my life.
So many guys who come back from that, not only do they say it's the most profound experience of their life, but many of them say it was the best experience of their life.
I understand that, for sure. Like, I guess I could encapsulate it like this. Like, you got your dudes, your team, your little indigenous troopers, and you're gonna go crush some target. And like, I never had a doubt that like maybe I would get injured or killed, but that I never had a doubt that the mission would fail, just because the odds were just in our favor. It's like, you got night vision, you got a cast stack, you got this huge support apparatus. It's like, there's no way we're not going to win this fight. But going on target, closing with, destroying the enemy, and then getting you and all your dudes back to base alive, best feeling in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
So many guys say that.
Best feeling in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it like? What can you describe it?
It's
or give an attempt.
I think, like, and I got my kind of evolutionary ideas about why that is. Mm-hmm. I think that we're on a very essential level, like, doing what human beings, or one of the things we're meant to do.
Or maybe one of the things we've always done. Well,
we're an adversarial species, but like every species in nature is adversarial, and it's not an evaluative statement. It's just kind of an observation. So I think on this, just the way our brains are, like, evolutionarily, like, okay, we're the monkeys with the big brains, right? Mm-hmm. And we've created this very technologically advanced, if not challenging, environment now that we live in. But the way our firmware up here, we're still hominids on the savannah, like 100%. And so I think through war, through combat, we kind of tap into that primal, okay, this is what we're supposed to do, And
was that surprising to have that part of your mind sort of ignited in a sense where you realize that, like, this is like something that's deeply embedded in your DNA?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm making that claim, but it's not based on, like, scientific research I've done. It's just kind of an intuition.
Well, many make that claim.
Yeah,
it's not an uncommon thought.
Yeah, so it rings true to me. And, like, have you read, like, that Sebastian Junger book,
yes.
Tribe?
Yeah. Great book.
Yeah, and like his thesis, like that's the first kind of PTSD thesis I read that kind of rang true with me. Because like before that, the popular conception was, these young men and women go off to war and see horrible things and come back fucked up. But like his thesis, where they lose that tribe, right? That task and purpose, unity of effort. Literally, we're tribal creatures. Like that's how we operate. Like I did a paper when I was doing my undergrad. I think I was trying to investigate like genetic impetus for like human conflict or whatever. And like during my research, one of the things I found that was super interesting to me was the way psychologically we're equipped to deal with about 100 to 120 individuals. Like that would be our extended tribe, our social group.
Dunbar's number.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this group of people that you can contain in your mind.
Yeah.
And it's segmented. There's like a small number of people that you're intimately attached to. There's a larger number that are close but more like associates, friends. And then there's people that you know, and it extends out. It actually extends even further than 120 or 150. It gets to like people you are aware of.
Yeah.
But it's fairly small, which is one of the weird things about knowing a lot of people.
Yeah.
That number gets really weird, and then your memory of people, it's almost like your brain deletes them because there's no room.
But then like how well do you know them as well?
Right.
Like how intimate is that relationship? But an interesting correlation I made, like researching this paper, was that number is the same number in Army Task Organization as an infantry company is 120, and that's kind of like your main operational unit in the infantry at least. Like SOF, you're dealing with smaller teams, smaller numbers, but I thought, wow, 120, that's it. And is that by design, or is that just the way it worked out?
It goes back to our tribal roots, most likely, that we evolved being accustomed to that group of people, that number of people, or a similar number.
Yeah, I mean, just survival. Like our mission statement is biological organisms. Even like the big brain monkeys that we are, it's like survive and replicate the gene.
Yeah.
And like everything else is kind of window dressing,
Right.
It's like, and like you can window dress it however you want to make it seem more important than that. But I'm a huge fan of the window dressing. Like that's definitely the salt in the soup for sure. But if you boil it down to, it's, what is the quiddity of being a human being? It's that, or any biological organism, like survive and replicate the gene. And so the whole capacity for combat, for human warfare, is like, even as an individual, if you're killed in combat, if you go back to like this group of hominids on the savannah, you're probably related to everyone in your group. So it's like, okay, maybe I won't pass my genes on, but my cousin over here will. So I'm going to support that effort. So I think that kind of organized conflict, one group against another, is in support of that. Like I think anthropologists have a term for it, pseudo kinship, where say in a combat situation, so you got like the classic scenario of like a dude jumping on a hand grenade to save his buddies, and that's like, that's hardwired. That's not a conscious decision, because I think if you had time to actually think about it, maybe you wouldn't do it,
right?
But it's that pseudo kinship, like that. I think that's, and to me, that's always what's been, I think, the most interesting paradox about war and combat is it's this event, this human event, that simultaneously brings about acts of pure selfless love and brutality without quarter in the same instant. So that's always intrigued me.
Well, it's always fascinating for me to talk to people that are intelligent like yourself that have experienced that, because that thread that you're expressing, it seems to ring true with almost all of them. That there's something about it that, although brutal and maybe in some ways unexpected, it also rings true with like a purpose, and that your life is intimately connected to these people, and in some way that becomes more satisfying than any other way to live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to hear a person like yourself, who's obviously very smart, express that, it's really interesting to someone like myself who hasn't experienced that but kind of understands what you're saying.